We are miners, hard rock miners, to the shaft house we must go. Oil bottle.
Stilfontein mine near Potchefstroom. Once vibrant and productive, it closed 4 years ago. All that is left of it now is this rubbish dump, where retrenched miners come to scavenge for scrap metal.
On the line, boys, drill your holes and stand in line. Can't you feel the rock dust in your lungs? It'll cut down a miner when he is still young. 2 years and the silicosis takes hold, and I feel like I'm dying from mining for gold. Yes, I feel like I'm dying.
Tiqale imine ndimncinci phansi njalo toti promote deske ndaba yi-team leader incwadi zami ezoku-team leader kuphela nangoku kule mine bendisebenza kuyo bandifike bandithatha futhi ukuba bathi no igesi into endiphazamisayo bathi ke ngoku ndina mandibhalise yonke imali zam zesifuba kuba nokubala baphinde ndiye emgodini into endingandicela yona yinye yintlupheko endiyibonayo apha kubantu ke abadala abangasenamandla abadeske mhlawumbi usebenza apha ecala kwam ithi ngenxa yomsizi lam deske ndimane kumembela mane echola uba akanamandla.
These old miners are part of the legacy of mining, but when the gold mines on the Witwatersrand closed down, they also left something else, a multitude of old mine dumps. And when the wind blows, so does the fine yellow dust.
If you live in next to the mine dump, and during the windy season, it's just hell. No single resident in Kagiso does not have a problem with the mine dumps. It's settled in their houses. If it's really windy, everybody closes the windows. They cannot do their washing, right? So it's almost similar like a war situation, definitely.
And you can't go out. You can't go to town because when you are from town, you are facing the dust.
The small particles go through the ceiling and is invisible. But the reality of the matter is that you are actually eating it and inhaling it every second.
It feels like something was just fine going in your face. And when it's going to your body, you will just see your body is itching. After that, if you are allergic, you'll see with a small rash coming right inside your body.
The dust has accumulated on the ceilings over years. If we can take you up there, you'll actually see what we're actually talking about. The late mining magnate, Mr. Oppenheimer, when he left his position as chairman of Anglo-American, he said, and I quote, "There is no doubt that when we leave this part of the earth, we would have left a great civilization. But at the same time, we agree that we would have left deep and dangerous holes underneath the soil of South Africa and huge mountains of mine dumps that are not rehabilitated."
Without mining, South Africa would be a very different place to what it is now, you know. It would be I hate to think what it would be like, because I mean, mining is just everything in this country. The gold that you extract, on average, amounts to about 8 or so grams per ton.
Everything else that you see in this rock ends up on a tailing dam, including all the pyrites and minerals.
You can see very clearly the heavy mineral concentrations, mainly pyrite, but also with nickel, cobalt, and zinc-bearing minerals.
There are many other minerals in the rock: arsenic, lead, uranium, barium, chromium and vanadium. When it rains, they dissolve into the water and wash down into the streams and rivers, finally ending up in the drinking water. Even though this water looks clean, it's heavily polluted.
And if mines are breaking the law or not doing things properly, then they've got to be given time to sort it out. If they can't, then they've got to be closed down.
Closing them down may not be the answer. The law says that mine dumps must be rehabilitated. But when this isn't done properly, there's nothing to stop the dust blowing off them. Much like the water, this dust contains many pollutants. Clinging to the tiny dust particles, they enter the lungs, where they dissolve almost immediately into the bloodstream. Sometimes the dust particles themselves are so small, they go straight into the lungs, causing them to harden. This can lead to shortness of breath, asthma, and chronic bronchitis, and increase the risk of TB.
For years, we've been knowing these dumps as cyanide. You know, even when the kids go and play on top there, the parents say, don't go and play on the cyanide, it's poisonous. So we have grew up with this kind of awareness.
This is Kagiso Township near Krugersdorp. Here, the community began fighting for the rehabilitation of their mine dump in the early 80s.
And it took us about 4 or 5 years to know exactly who's owning what.
Ownership of mine dumps is a complex issue. When the community finally tracked down the owners, they discovered that the dump had just been sold. Frustrated and disillusioned, they decided to get help, which came in the form of Ellen Nichols, an advocate from the Legal Resources Centre.
That's why they came to us in the first place, I think, when they just hit dead ends everywhere, where they couldn't get information, where they kept being told that, no, hang on, the company is being sold. Okay. I wonder if I should take this file, I think so. So we investigated the matter. We found that the mine dump was completely unrehabilitated and uncovered. It was just a heap of sand which was very susceptible to wind. And we also found that the law was actually fairly straightforward on the point. The Minerals Act expects mines to rehabilitate the surface of their works, and that would include the slimes dams or tailings dams. Well, a new message. Okay.
Ellen's involvement with environmental law came about by accident.
I think the passion was obviously there. That's what I figured out, you know, if only I knew how to combine these things and these things that I know I like and enjoy, then I would have the ultimate job. And then the ultimate job just fell in my lap. I'm very grateful for that.
We cannot say as the community of Kagiso that mining has contributed anything positive for the well-being of the community around here. It has just left us with a legacy of environmental degradation. That's all that we can say about mining activity in this area, really. It's only when we became aware that there is law which we can use as a tool to enforce these mine dumps to address our problems, that we then started really acting on that particular issue.
And act they did. Once they discovered that the dump was owned by African Consolidated Mines, they took legal action. But before the case could get to court, they reached a settlement. With great fanfare, the owners agreed to rehabilitate the dump.
I think it's a very important day for us to sign this agreement because we are committed to environmental management and the rehabilitation of the mining activities itself. But our main view is to give this tailings facility over to the community at a stage once it's rehabilitated as a recreational facility.
Now, more than a year and a half later, there's little evidence that anything lasting has been done.
topsoil layer is really a very thin layer. 200 millimeters of topsoil will erode over a fairly short period of time and would start allowing dust to come through that again. So for a very short-term measure, it did help. Medium to long-term, it's not going to work. Much more is necessary.
We're absolutely not happy.
Since that time, and even now, we don't know where are they. We don't know whether are they coming or not coming. We're still waiting.
When Special Assignment approached African Consolidated Mines to ask about this, they declined to comment. For the Kagiso community, it was back to square one.
So the mine owners are basically running away with this thing.
Kagiso isn't the only place where mining has left behind a trail of pollution. Several other communities in Gauteng face similar problems, large, unrehabilitated mine dumps with little or nothing done to stop the dust or the polluted water running off them. Mining has caused a huge problem all along the Witwatersrand.
The mining belt runs from west to east, comes through the center part of the greater Johannesburg area. To the northern area, you've got residential areas which traditionally have mostly been white areas. And then to the south of the mining belt, you've got residential areas including the large Soweto area, which have traditionally been black areas. And the predominant wind comes from the northwest, so the wind direction is something like that.
This means that the dust only affects the poorer communities to the south. When Ellen realized this, she decided to put together one giant court case. She wanted to take all of these mining companies to court for not rehabilitating their dumps. She'd used the same laws she'd tried with the Kagiso community, but this time it would be different. This time there'd be no quick settlement. This time she was going to take the matter all the way to court.
The consequences for them is that they would get a court order ordering them to comply with the law, and if they still choose not to comply with the court order, they would face contempt of court proceedings, and that could culminate in managing directors ending up in jail. In Kagiso, we realized that even though some measures have been taken to resolve the immediate problem on the Leipoortvlei tailings dam, they still sat with a huge dust problem. We couldn't figure out where it came from, and then we realized that there's another dump a few kilometers further, which is even bigger and which is also upwind. That particular dump is very bad. It's huge, it's high, it's big. It is completely unrehabilitated. There are no measures on that thing to curb dust pollution. And it just blows over that Kagiso area like a cloud of dust on windy days.
This particular dump is owned by a company called Durban Roodepoort Deep, or DRD. We asked them about rehabilitation.
If your interpretation of rehabilitation is vegetation, putting vegetation on it and vegetating it, no, it has not been done.
The mine has an obligation to rehabilitate, and they've got to do the rehabilitation in such a way that the dust problem is sorted out.
I mean, I'm asking you for specific details here because from what I can see, come August, come the winds, there's going to be dust, you know?
There will be dust, and we recognize the fact that there's going to be dust. I mean, we're not absolving ourselves of our responsibility. We own those dumps, we have a responsibility to rehabilitate them.
This responsibility is entrenched in law, but it costs a lot. So some mines try to avoid it. The law also says that all mining companies must submit an environmental management plan to the government. This gives specific details of their plans to rehabilitate tailings dams, or mine dumps, like this one in Stilfontein. When it's approved by the Department of Minerals and Energy, it becomes legally binding. The mine must then stick to what they've said they'll do.
That's more or less where the waterways. These dams are fairly distanced from the Vaal River. The other complex, the Buffels complex, is much closer to the Vaal River.
Yeah, we also take that into consideration in our assessment.
Yes.
Are there any monitoring boreholes at this complex?
Yes, there are a number of monitoring boreholes.
As it's supposed to, DRD has submitted its environmental plan, which has been approved by government. This makes it legal and binding.
We will continue with our rehabilitation program as we've planned, as we've scheduled, irrespective of whether a court case takes place or not. We're not going to be forced by a court case to rehabilitate.
They say they're sticking to their plan, but are they?
Look, that is where our audit process comes in terms of Regulation 518 of the Minerals Act, or regulations published in terms of the Minerals Act. EMP monitoring and performance assessments have to be done.
The mines are monitored to see if they're sticking to the agreements. The findings of these assessments are then presented at meetings, like this one at the DRD head office in Stilfontein. On the one side, government officials, and on the other, mine management.
Also pick up, there's different sources of spillages, and we can go out in the field and we can show it. We see it as a priority one story that needs to be looked at.
We know that some of the paddocks are problematic and we need to do something about it, and we will look at what we can do in that regard.
Yeah, I think the other big issue is the whole story of the prevention of seepage.
Now, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that there is seepage. We can't run away from the fact that there is seepage, given the geology of the area as well.
Despite these assessments, there are still problems. The government just doesn't have the capacity to police the agreements properly, or the will to punish infringements. Fines as small as R1,000 do little to help the communities living near these dumps.
The one solution for the community is to have full-time lawyers on their case to follow up on each and every settlement agreement or other agreement reached.
The other solution is to force the Department of Minerals and Energy Affairs to do their job of enforcing the law. The only way to do this is to take them to court as well.
Definitely, it is the responsibility of the Department of Mineral and Energy Affairs to enforce the laws that Parliament has passed. It is their responsibility. Otherwise, that law it's useless, it's helpless.
I mean, the minister always quotes the Aesop story of killing the goose that lays the golden egg. Mining companies in this country, first in the past and even currently, are still laying the golden egg. They're the goose. So you need to maintain a balance between trying to get them to act responsibly, but at the same time, not pushing them and squeezing them like Aesop did, because killing them is not going to do us any good.
At the moment, we're looking at dust suppression methodologies, just to suppress the dust. But what option do you take? Who do you believe? What do you use? Some areas we are delaying because we're looking at technology options, but in other areas you can't in terms of your rehabilitation. You've got to control the dust, you've got to manage the water seepage, you're liable. And I'm liable because I'm the manager of those mines. So, I mean, I hardly have a night where I can sleep without worrying about what's going to happen.
In some places, DRD is involved in some innovative programs, like this one at Stilfontein Mine. This project is called Golden Village. It employs some of the miners retrenched 4 years ago and youth from the surrounding townships. The plan is to rehabilitate what's left of this once bustling mine.
At this point in time, we are not basically saying they should compensate for the health hazard that they have caused to the well-being of the people. We are saying that prevent further damage to our community.
It's just about impossible to prove a direct link between a particular mine dump and a specific person's illness. Because of this, Ellen is taking another route.
Let's look on the map. And if there's a problem, phone, but I don't want problems today. Okay? I want those people to be in my office as soon as possible. Okay.
Sick of endless delays and excuses, this court case is aimed at getting the dust problem addressed immediately.
Thanks, Bethel. I owe you. Okay.
After months of laborious preparations, the court case is finally coming together. Affidavits have been prepared, and the applicants from Kagiso have come to Pretoria to sign them.
Hi. Thanks, Uru, for
Hi,
coming.
how are
Good
you?
to see you. Well, thanks.
Good, great.
And you guys?
Great.
Finally, your affidavits are ready. Huh?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Come, let's go and look at them.
Old England, and as well as painting the house. We know all this problem. We have just now written affidavits. We have had several meetings in the community. We have collected signatures of support. And I must say that not a single resident has expressed something negative with regard to this particular campaign. Everybody is saying that we should go on with that particular case. They support it fully.
It's not as if we're killing the elephants and the lions. We're killing the people because we're polluting the air, it's polluting the groundwater, it's polluting the rivers. And I don't think that cost is really quantifiable. You could probably work out what the profit was that was made and what kind of boost that gave the economy. But the cost we now have to pay is huge.
Now that the affidavits are signed, it's a matter of compiling the final documents and adding the finishing touches. Then the court case will be ready.
Well, I hope that the papers will be ready and that the case will be able to go out and to be launched before my baby arrives.